Hello and welcome everyone. Today I will explain our research about conformance checking approximation using simulation technique. The other authors of this paper are Juan Garza Gonzalez, Sebastian van Zelst, and Will van der Aalst. And as Hayo explained, all of us from process and data science chair of RWTH University of Aachen. There are many different ways to compute the conformance checking. For example, using footprint, token-based, and also alignment technique. I could say one of the most widely used technique in both academia and also in industry is the technique of alignment. To compute alignment, we need usually a Petri net and also an event log. Here you can see an event log with 5 unique variants. And for example, for the first variant, ABCE, we have 10 traces. The point is, in many commercial tools, because PetriNet is sometimes complex for end user, in the background, if they take a BPMN model from the user and in the background convert it to PetriNet computing alignment. In some other commercial tools, they let users select some of the traces, in the background discover a process model, PetriNet, usually by inductive joiner, and compute the alignment. However, using this alignment technique sometimes is time consuming, and to be honest, for some real event logs and complex process models, using normal hardware, it is very impractical. There are some approximation methods in the literature, however, some of them are not accurate enough, and some of them are even slower than normal alignment technique. So here you can see the outline of the remaining part of my presentation. I will first explain how by using edit distance we can compute the alignment. Thereafter, I will explain the proposed approximation method. I will show afterward the experimental results and conclude the presentation. We can consider a process model as a set of all possible behaviors that could be replayed by it. For example, for the given PetriNet, we could have this corresponding set of behaviors. Of course, if there is a loop in the model, the set will be infinite. So if we consider each variant in the model and also in the log as a word, we can use edit distance measure to compute the alignment and simply find the most similar trace in the model for each variant in the log, and compute the minimum number of additions to convert the log trace to one of the most similar one. For example, for the log trace AE, we can by inserting 1B between A and E, converting the log trace to one of model traces that is ABE. And of course, because we have one addition, the cost will be 1. So as I explained, we could consider a process model as a set of all possible behavior. However, for weak process models, this set could be infinite or very complex. So the main idea is to use a subset of those model behaviors. We consider a small subset and try to use that subset instead of the whole model. But we should note that if we use that subset, we return an upper bound for the alignment cost, and that maybe we couldn't return the accurate value. So because the most similar trace in the model may be not presented in that subset. One question could be how to have this subset, how to have this model subset. We can use alignment technique. For example, we can sample some of the log variants, compute normal alignments for them, and use that subset for alignment approximation. Or we can simulate the model and generate as much as possible behavior that we want. In this research, we use the simulation method. However, we try to look at the log and simulate behaviors that are also close to the log. To do that, we can use a prefix tree. For example, we always start from an empty subsequence, an empty prefix, And for example, here we can just execute at the beginning A. After executing A, we could execute B or C, and correspondingly, we will have AC and AB in the prefix tree. By expanding AB, we will have ABC, ABE, and ABD. And we know that ABE is one of the model traces. The output of our simulation is a simulated log that's a set of model behaviors. Also, we return the length of the shortest model trace. We could also, using this type of simulation, we could return also a set of all prefixes with a limited length. Here in this example, we could see that we generate all possible prefixes up to length 2. Empty sequence A, AC, AB. We don't have any other prefixes. Now I want to explain how we will find bonds and approximation for the alignment cost. As I explained, if we use a subset of model behaviors, we could and use it as a model, we could return an upper bound for the alignment cost. For the lower bound, we could use different methods. We have different options. First, we could compute the difference between lengths of log trace and its projection on the activities in the model. For example, suppose that in the log trace, there is an activity Q, and we don't have such activity in the model. We simply could consider that we should remove or delete that activity. The second option is to comparing the length of projected log trace with the shortest model trace that we have, the length of the shortest model trace. So if it is shorter than the model behavior, we know that we need some insertions. And the last one corresponds to comparing the prefix of log trace with the set of all possible prefixes up to length k. And finally, for the lower bound, we return the maximum value of these bonds. For approximation, we can remove repetitive patterns that correspond to loop behavior and computing the minimum edit distance. Of course, the approximation should be always between upper bound and the lower bound. To give an example, suppose that for this Petri net and for this prefix tree, we generate this simulation. So the simulation method returns this information. We only simulate one trace, that is ABE. We generate all prefixes up to length 2, and we also return the length of the shortest path in the model, that is 3. And we want to approximate the alignment cost of AE, that is the second variant in the table. So if we consider the length of AE with the shortest path in the model, that is 3, we know that we need at least one insertion. So the lower bound will be 1. For the upper one, we compare SL with AE, and we find that the minimum edit that we could have is 1, that is insertion of 1B. So here, because the upper bound and the lower bound are the same, we know that our approximation will be the same, and of course, we have accurate approximation. So to evaluate our method in a more realistic scenarios, we implemented the idea in both PROM and rapid PROM and applied on 7 real event logs. For process models, we consider inductive miner with 4 different thresholds that are 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, and 0.7. We also compare our approach with the sampling method that simply consider 10% of variant, compute the normal alignments of them. And for simulation, we just generate model behaviors equal to the size of the sampling method. Here you can see the results of these experiments. Of course, there are lots of numbers and it is very hard to follow, but the main message of these experiments are we always have a higher performance improvement. Sometimes we improve the performance of normal alignment more than 1,000 times. We also find that the sampling method could provide a tighter bandwidth that is better in this case. So the sampling method is more accurate. However, for approximation error, there is no winner. Sometimes the sampling method is better, sometimes the simulation method. We also try to see the effect of the size of simulated log. We do the simulation with 10 model trace, 100 model traces, and 1,000 ones. For example, for BPI Challenge 2018 inspection, we see that by increasing the size of log from 10 to 1,000, we reduce the approximation error and we will have accurate results. Also, the bandwidth will be tighter. However, the performance improvement reduced from 16 to 8. For some logs, for example, road traffic fine, we couldn't generate 1,000 unique variants. So of course, we see that there is a trade-off between the size of log and having performance high performance improvement. So there is a trade-off between bandwidth and performance improvement. We also conduct an experiment to see the effect of our guided simulation. As I said, we look at the log and try to generate behaviors that are closer to the log. We compare this approach with just randomly simulate model traces, and as we expected, the speed of random simulation method is higher. However, we are more accurate compared to that approach. So we find that if we want to generate and simulate model traces, we should somehow generate behaviors that are also closer to the log. To conclude this presentation, we present a new approximation approach that try to generate a subset of model behaviors and use just that subset for approximating the alignment value. This method could be used with many commercial tools. We could let users select some of the variants in the log and consider them directly as a model. We don't need to discover a process model again. We found that this method could be very accurate if the simulated model traces are close to the log. We could improve the performance. And for future work, we aim to also return more diagnostic results, and for example, distribution of activity instead of just returning a value. Also, we try to implement an incremental conformance checking method to let user decide his or her preferred accuracy. As I said, there is a trade-off between the size of log and also the accuracy of the approximation. So user could decide about this value. So thanks a lot for your attention. Please feel free to ask your question here, or if you want to discuss more about this idea, please feel free to contact me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mohamed Reza. Very nicely presented. We still also have time due to your progress with the talk. One thing I'm sure of is that Will not tell you that this has already been done 15 years ago, because he probably would have told you earlier.
Yes.
But perhaps there are still other questions, comments. I think there is somebody who raised his hand who has a question. No. But
there is Bart, I think.
Is it Bas? Oh, Bart.
Bart.
Yes, okay. Bart, I unmuted you. Go ahead.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, a quick question. Thank you, Mohamed Reza, for the interesting presentation. I was wondering that, as you probably know, there is in alignments calculation is typically the well-fitting traces are pretty quick, but most time is spent in the ones that are not fitting well. So with that in mind, did you think about some sort of mechanism or way to early on identify which traces you might want to do an approximation on and which ones you might want to do a full alignment on?
Actually, thanks for your question, Bart. I guess it's very insightful. I know that the binary alignment could be super fast. So as you recommended, we could first run binary alignment, find the completely fitted traces, and after that, just for unfitted variants, we apply the approximation technique. Actually, it's a completely valid suggestion. Thanks for your suggestion.
Very nice. Thank you.
Can I ask myself a question?
Of course.
Yes, I think so. Did you pay for the registration?
Yeah, I think in time,
Okay.
in kind. I have a question, because as you know, the optimal alignments use a A-star approach, which is basically a search with an estimator, a function that estimates.
Yeah.
Have you considered the possibility of, what you do now, you estimate fitness, but once you estimate fitness, you basically estimate the cost of the alignment. Could this estimation be fed into the estimator function of the A-star to actually return optimal alignments, but faster, because the estimation is better than what currently the estimation functions that exist are about?
Thanks, Massimiliano. I guess to returning the optimal alignment, we need to have a bigger subset. So we should at least have, I guess in the paper I mentioned it, we need to at least have all prefixes up to lengths of the log trace plus shortest pass in the model. I'm not sure about it, but I mentioned it in the paper. So if we generate enough model traces, we could be sure that, for example, the alignment is completely accurate. However, if the subset is not complete, there is always a possibility that the most similar trace is not placed in the subset. So this is a drawback of this method.
Mm-hmm.